Affordable Housing Matters, a program on local housing issues presented by WFOY on the first Friday of the month, sponsored by the St. John's Housing Partnership and produced in cooperation with the Mike Bones Public Relations. Today, Bill Lazar, Executive Director of St. John's Housing Partnership, is talking with St. Augustine Mayor Nancy Sikes-Kline, discussing housing issues and trends and how they affect the local economy. The mayor is going to offer some unique perspectives on the importance of affordable housing. Ladies and gentlemen, please.
Thank you. We appreciate the time. We're really just excited to have the mayor here today. The city plays a huge role in some of our affordable housing efforts in St. Johns County, in large part because they are one of the key aspects to it, which is they have a water and sewer system utility service that covers a lot of the land where we have affordable housing opportunities. So, and I've been working in the Lincolnville area since 1995, where used to be a lot of affordable housing was, and it has slowly just grown beyond that. But it's the city is a key part to our affordable housing solutions, and y'all have got a real unique perspective with what you do there.
Yes, and we appreciate the work that you've done down in Lincolnville over the years for the city. It's a great service that you provide to the residents to help them age in place as Lincolnville does continue to gentrify. There's no other word for it. It's gentrification. Yeah. But I think when we established the CRA in Lincolnville, we did understand that would happen. That would have the effect. It's very predictable. And what we hoped by joining with you in your organization is to do the Fix It Up program, which allows long-time residents to stay in their homes. Yep. To do those fixes that they need to keep them safe in their homes. And
that's, that's something that we work with Jamie Perkins a lot. And, it's having those CRA funds that directly say for those long-term families, the local owners, let's do what we can to keep them stable, to make their homes more accessible. Because a lot of them are the folks that have aged in place. A lot of them are some of our civil rights heroes. And
yes.
That always fascinates me when you walk in to meet some of those folks that are part of our history. But it's huge for them because at a certain point, they're at that point where just a slip and a fall could be, treacherous. And it's relatively easy to make some homes a little bit more accessible, at least so that they can, have a walk-in shower and stairs and steps and that sort of thing. So having those CRA funds is a tremendous benefit for folks that are still in the neighborhood there.
So yeah, that is one way that we appreciate you and the work that you do here in St. Johns County. So one of the things that I came on the show this morning thinking very much about is the affordable home needs in St. Johns County. And I wanted to share with everyone that the city has been working, exploring options. We went through an exercise where we looked at what all the public-owned lands that we have and within the city and outside of the city, and what could we do to help provide affordable housing for our workforce, which we're hearing is not living in the area just because it's expensive. Yeah. It's very expensive for them. So we embarked upon this journey, and last year we settled on the property on Holmes Boulevard, which is an 82-acre parcel that's been owned by the city for decades. And part of it is developable, and we originally thought we could probably get maybe 450 units on it, and we're thinking more like 400 now. But we are very much in the process of trying to get that actualized. That site has been selected, and we want to go out to the community, and we want to design it, and we want to hear from them, and we want to workshop it. And so I just wanted to announce that we do have on Saturday, March 18th, from 9 to noon, we're going to open the site up out there on Holmes. And it's just north of Murray Middle School. Yep. Right. On Holmes Boulevard, and it will be plainly marked. We'd love everybody to come out and visit the site. It really actually is lovely. It's got a lot of water on it, coquina pits.
It's a beautiful piece of property.
Yeah.
I think it'll be really interesting what you're able to develop there.
And we do, we have discussed little things like we've used it as kind of a lay down yard, like a storage yard for things over the years. So we have some challenges, but nothing is unsolvable. I think we probably have more solutions than we have challenges on that property. I think we've been working through it. And then again, on March 20th, we're going to have a public charrette from 1 to 5 in the Alcazar room, which is City Hall, the downstairs commission meeting rooms. And we'd like to, we're going to be doing that. We've hired Brooks and Scarp out of California, who does, that is their wheelhouse, is affordable housing. They're an architectural firm. And they're going to come and they're going to run the charrette for us. And we really want to hear public input on that. We'd love to have positive, negative. I always say the negatives challenge us to do better. So all of it is welcome. Yep. All input is welcome. And then after that, what we'll do is we'll take all that and we'll workshop it at the commission level and just generate a final report. And then from there, we'll be going out to look for partners.
I just, it's a great opportunity for folks to come and talk to y'all. And your professional background is kind of in this area anyhow. I mean,
yes.
that is the single biggest challenge when it comes to affordable housing, trying to take a piece of property and say, what can we really do with it, and dealing with all the zoning, land planning regulations and everything else. So I think it'll be unique just getting your perspective alone as people talk about because I always think zoning is basically, it's not like the 10 Commandments that came down from the mountain stone. Someone came up with that plan in the last 10 or 15 years. Someone can rewrite it.
Correct.
If the energy is there, if the mission is there, if there's a real plan. And I think a lot of people, as they hear about it, and at a certain point, we're only talking about 400 or 500 units. It's not the final solution for St. Johns County, but it's the perfect place. It's close to town. It's on essentially what is a bus route already for folks that have transportation issues. And ideally, what you guys would probably love is to see all those folks not drive their cars downtown to come to work, but to have some kind of a transit system to come back and forth on. So I think it'll be a great opportunity, and I hope that people do come. I hope we hear from local employers, because I think a big part of dealing with affordable housing solutions is figuring out who are the employees we're trying to stabilize. Are there different parts of our community that are going to be part of our focus for this particular project or something. So I think it's going to be really interesting, and it's neat with you guys owning the land. You literally are in the driver's seat.
That's right.
You get to sort of decide what's going to make sense and figure out how.
And that's bringing that to the table and offering a partnership for development. That is, I think that's a lot. I think it'll get us a long way. I think it'll attract partners and interest.
I was reading just the other day in Sarasota, the city has basically decided something very similar. As they've said, they need affordable housing so bad, they said, we may end up having to act as a developer simply because we have the land and this is what we want to do, but they're looking for partners just like you guys are talking about.
Well, what our plan is to offer, our share in the kitty is going to be the land and the water and sewer. That's the plan we have now.
Stay with us. More coming up on the St. John's Housing Affordable Partnership. Affordable Partnership, guys. Right after this.
Oh yeah, and that's where you get into that conversation about what's the definition. Just like you say, oh my gosh, my brain freezes when you start talking about this equation and that equation. How are people supposed to understand that?
Well, the hard part that I've always seen is because I've got friends of mine that always say, well, we're talking about affordable housing. And you start talking about it and said, I was talking about homes that someone could buy that they have to have probably $65,000 a year in income to be able to purchase. I was thinking about a friend of mine who works and lives on $35,000 a year. And so you've almost got to define those parameters. And at a certain point, you have to sit and say, okay, it may be really difficult to help someone who is working a full-time job and has 2 kids that makes $40,000 a year. it may be hard for them to buy a home. A single-family home, very difficult. A townhome, possibly. But it all depends on sort of someone putting those different pieces together. And that, you know, everybody is going to come to you. And they're going to literally want the entire spectrum on that one site. And that's going to be one of the challenges, because at a certain point, you can't sit and say, oh, well, we're going to do just all of this. I mean, one of the things that I think is...
That's good info, thank you.
Well, it's you know, the zoning is such a big part of it. And, you know, you see all these conversations about the missing middle and everything. And the single-family zoning limits us so much, but at the same time, people are a little afraid of density. But, you know, you go through the old city, and I run into people all the time who said, when I graduated from St. Augustine High, I lived in a garage apartment on Lemon Street. We built garage apartments back then, and they served a real purpose other than Airbnbs.
Well, it goes back to that aging in place.
Yeah.
You know, that we need to provide for aging in place, and I frankly don't know if our code in every zoning category, residential zoning category, allows for that, for someone to build a mother-in-law suite in their backyard.
But at a certain point,
It's not certainly, I don't think it was contemplated.
no, some of it just happened at the time when we weren't blowing out at the seams with population. But it's a really interesting point for you guys, because the big downside for everybody is I think people are tired of the Airbnb issues that come up, and I don't want to let an ADU happen if it's going to turn into an Airbnb. Okay, so how do we let an ADU benefit that single person, or those two young people that graduated from high school that can afford to rent a garage apartment? They're not ready for anything else, but not turn it into an Airbnb.
Well, I think, again, we had an earlier conversation about, you know, teasing out these different categories, and oftentimes, you know, we talk about homeless and we tease out these different categories in affordable housing, and it's the same thing, I think, with this, is that with the Airbnbs, or short-term rentals, we call them, I generally look at it as hosted homes and unhosted homes. Whole homes and partial homes. And I generally feel like, and the feedback I get, is that people don't have a problem with hosted homes. That's where
you're on site and you're managing it.
You're there, you're not going to let crazy stuff happen. You know, the crazy stuff that we hear happens, you know, too many cars, overflowing trash, fireworks in the middle of the night, drunken behavior.
It's crazy. I mean, I think you know, but I manage a building right across from CPS, got 12 apartments in it, and a rental apartments. And we are constantly contacted by people who want to rent the apartment and then rent it out on a monthly basis. We don't do that, but I mean, every day.
Well, that may be part of what we're talking about today, is just that great need that's there, and that they're going to want to come. I got contacted this week by someone who wants to just find a site for glamping. For the, you know what I'm talking about. It's the trend with the young people. They're tired of the short-term rentals, and of some of them, and they want that unique experience.
Right.
More unique experience. They want to go off-road. They're totally self-sufficient. It's fascinating, really, when you think about it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, stand by. We're about ready to put you back on the air.
Okay.
And remember, everything you've just said is
It's on Facebook.
on
Cool.
Facebook. But
Love it.
Bill this time didn't use any bad words, so I'm proud of him.
Well, hopefully we had something worthy to say during the break.
Exactly.
Conversation never stops in my house, I'll tell you that.
Stand by. Welcome back to the St. Johns County Morning News on WFOY, and it's Affordable Housing Matters. You can make a difference in what has become an affordable housing crisis in our county. Our workforce, ranging from teachers to first responders, restaurant workers, not able to find decent, safe, affordable housing in one of the most prosperous counties in our state. The elderly and local businesses are also suffering. Now, here's how you can help. If you have a property or land, contact the nonprofit St. John's Housing Partnership. And if you're not in a position to donate for affordable housing, SJHP could possibly build affordable housing for community members. You can also make a cash donation or bequeath a gift. SJHP can give you further information about the tax and financial benefits of these and other gift methods. We suggest you go to your website, www.sjhp.org. Let's go back to Bill Lazar, the Executive Director, and St. Augustine Mayor Nancy Sikes-Kline.
Thank you. Nancy, let's talk a little bit more about just what we're talking about zoning and changes and things, because with the new property you have opportunities to create different kinds of housing arrangements. In the existing land that the city oversees and regulates, there's always the conversation about, could you build a granny flat, an ADU or something like that, that would benefit the local workforce, not be seen necessarily as, short-term rentals or something like that. But do you think there are ways that you can do one and not have the other take over? Because I think that ends up being the challenge. We could use granny flats all day long. If you had enough space to get parking off the street and put in a small unit, I think it's very feasible. But the question that a lot of folks have is they want to see it benefit local families, not necessarily just, short-term rentals.
Well, thank you. We've had this conversation before, and I think one of the interesting facets that's been brought to light recently is I feel like there's generally support for the ADUs, as you call it. What does ADU stand for?
Accessory dwelling unit.
Okay, so that's the zone
Granny
term.
flat is
right.
easier.
So yes, it's the mother-in-law suite,
Yep.
or that extra garage apartment, or something like that. And I think there's general support for that as we move into the future, and I think that is the future. I think we will see more and more of that style of living where, and it plays into the big theme we're talking about is aging in place. So, the family can live in the main home and until the children have grown and moved out, and then they can move into the smaller apartment in the back and rent their home, or other family can move back. That sort of scenario, and that's kind of it's kind of an American tradition. It's always been an American tradition to do that. But what's interesting is now this new dynamic of the flooding that we've had. And so one of the things that we keep hearing, and bear with me for a minute, one of the things we keep hearing is, well, the more you cover the land, the more you develop the land, the less resilient we are, the more flooding there's going to be. There's less capacity for the ground to absorb the water in a natural way, which it's so more development. I get letters and people say more development is going to hurt my neighborhood because we're already flooding, so don't do that. So we get that pervious impervious discussion going. So I don't know what the answer is going to do, but I do know that the tension is there.
Right.
And we're going to have to figure it out. I don't know if it's everything goes up on stilts or piers or, moving into the future.
But I think that's really important because, we're dealing now with the aftermath recently of Ian and Nicole, which, for the folks that got hit by it, it was pretty severe. For the county as a whole, there's a lot of folks that it's not like back after Irma and Matthew where we're spending years trying to help an entire neighborhood rebuild. It still has been devastating for the folks that hit, but as we look at it, we realize this is happening over and over. There's no longer 100-year floods or 100-year storms or 500-year. It's like, no, every year it's a crapshoot. We have a chance, so what are we doing to build and prepare for it, even on a small scale? Because I get frustrated on affordable housing if I go, I've got a single-family lot, and I come to the city and say, could we possibly put a duplex here? And it's like, well, that's possible. What's going to happen to your stormwater? It's like, well, if I go up instead of go out, then I can have the same footprint and not have too much of that. But I got to have parking. Well, okay, if I can do gravel parking so that you allow for some of that. There are different things like that I think we've all got to start looking at simply because we're on the coast and we can't really ignore it. I know a lot of the newer developments out, in other parts of the county haven't had flooding issues because everything is being required to be built up to a certain degree. That's one of the things that adds to the unaffordability of something is setting aside so much land for infrastructure, for stormwater ponds and everything else.
Well, and that is the opportunity you have in new development.
Right.
You have opportunity in new development. I think sometimes we forget that when we're complaining about new development.
Yeah.
But we do have opportunities available. So Good point.
And y'all have always been a little bit more creative about some of the different kinds of parking surfaces that are allowed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know years ago I was on West King Street where Catholic Charities used to be, right across from DeBose Appliances, and they had a little parking lot in the back, and their whole issue was, well, if you pave it, there's going to be a stormwater issue, and they said, well, we could do, they called it back then Menorcan paving. It was a coquina clay mix.
Oh, right.
And a little bit of a bowl in the parking lot. It worked all day long. Yeah, when you had a lot of rain, there was a little bit of pond in the middle of it, but you ended up walking around. But it worked, and it allowed things to permeate through. It didn't run everything down to the creek or somewhere else, which is, you know, that's one of the things that I've seen is that sometimes swales serve a better purpose for sort of letting the stormwater purify itself rather than just getting all dumped in the pond and then it all sort of sits there because it ran down the curb.
Right. Right. I think that's a really good point. Yeah. I kind of brings back my melancholy to growing up when there were a lot of dirt and sand lots and dirt roads and sand roads in the city. And, you know, they've pretty much all been paved, I think.
And that just has kind of complicated things a little bit because as you pave it and you put in curb and gutter, then you're running all the water to a certain place as opposed to it slowly percolates down. Yeah. But I mean that's, I think as you know, the city and even other neighborhoods around the perimeter of the city, not as much on the island, because I think as a barrier island there's always going to be that challenge. But when you look at other parcels where the lot's big enough, getting back to the idea of doing some kind of an in-law suite or a separate little unit, if you can do the parking and again, if you can raise it off the ground so that there's a little bit more permeability there, you know, that you take the South and the Shores, they're perfect examples of places where first off, I know people have put garage apartments over garages, but they didn't include a kitchen until after the building department left.
Right. After the inspection.
You know, I mean, we've got a few places where people have got sheds in the backyard that have, you know, it looks like the man cave or the, you know, something else because it's got a window unit in it, but people are living in it. You know, it's just because they had to do it for somebody to get them somewhere stable. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, you know, we've got to start thinking a little bit more creatively about what it takes to stabilize our workforce. You know, you guys, the backbone of your tax base are small businesses. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think you have real challenges between the college and church groups and nonprofits owning land. You lose out on a lot of tax base.
We do.
We've got to stabilize that small business. I mean, and they're the folks that are really at risk of losing employees if we can't find housing for them.
I agree. We are, and we are searching for solutions, and that is, you know, what we've decided to do is put this 82 acres out there and see what we can do with it. You're right about it not being the solution. It is a drop in the bucket. Yeah. And we need more, and I do hope that we will continue to work with the county. Obviously, as you pointed out, we will work with the county.
Yep.
On these solutions.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
And we'd like to thank you, Bill Lazar and Mayor Nancy Sikes-Kline of St. Augustine. This has been First Friday, Affordable Housing Matters, a program on housing issues presented by WFOY and produced in cooperation with the St. John's Housing Partnership. Join us again on Friday, April 7th at 8:30 a.m. And remember, www.sjhp.org. Have a great day.
All right.
It flies by.
Thank you. It does. You did great.
It really does.
Lead the way.
One of the things.
You keep offering him a job, but
one of the things that
He'd be good.
when you talk about everybody wanting everything, when people talk especially about affordable housing on the lower end, and like I was on this Compassionate St. Augustine board panel the other night.
wave goodbye to Facebook.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.